What's going on, everybody? You are listening to the Co-Living Show. My name is Craig Curelop,
Miller McSwain.
and we've got a solo episode for you today. We're actually getting a lot of good feedback saying that you guys like these episodes, and we feel like we can get a lot of good content just straight at you right away. Obviously, the guests are exciting. We love our guests, and we're going to continue to bring guests on, but we are going to throw more and more of these solo episodes in. So that way we can just spit straight facts at you. So that way you guys can run our transcript through your AI processing devices and maybe be able to glean some of the stuff from us. Miller, you know a thing or two about AI processing devices. That's the proper word, right?
Yeah, that is the proper word. And Craig, I'm just curious, what makes our solo episodes the ones that are facts and the ones with our guests just opinions?
Well, that's a good question. I feel like you're putting me on the spot here, dude. It's just sometimes there's just like stories and stuff with the guests. Whereas we'll probably throw in some stories and all that kind of stuff here, but the guest is primarily a story with facts layered in. This is like straight facts with stories layered in.
Straight facts.
Straight facts,
Yeah.
FAX facts.
Yeah. And I will say, I think Craig and we're kind of like the melting pot just because we do get to talk to all of these different people that we're interviewing. And we do get to pick those items and pick what we think would be best and test it out and then potentially implement it. So all these guests that are coming on, we are kind of like a filter. So you guys might kind of hear the results of all these different things that you've been hearing about. Like, what did we choose out of all of that? And like, what did we deploy out of it? Why did we choose that? So you guys will kind of get that distilled info.
Yeah, for sure. And other thing, guys, too, is like some of you guys may be way ahead of us. Some of you may be behind us. We are trying to scale as fast as we can. And with that scale, we're testing these things out in large numbers. And when we're testing these things out in large numbers, we'll report back to see what works and what doesn't. But you can take what we know and know that we're not some statistical anomaly or anything like that. The more things you do it, the more statistical significance it has. And so yeah, basically just saying, okay, we're testing it at a high level. That way, when you guys implement it, you can be pretty dang sure it's better than whatever alternative we're offering. And also with that scale as well, we are continuously looking for more and more partners to do more and more deals with. We are at 90% occupancy, which is the exact amount we want to be at. Actually, we found that any more than that, and we actually start losing out on residents because we don't have enough options for them. So we're at the exact level we want to be. We're looking to acquire more. So if you're interested in partnering with us, make sure you just drop me a DM on Instagram, Craig Curelop. You'll recognize the stash in the super aura profile picture that my wife took. And then if you talk to Miller, you'll probably just talk to an AI. So he can't be trusted.
Not true. Isabel, the producer of this podcast, replies to my DMs often. So you will reach a human and then potentially me afterwards.
All right.
And I also have a stash. So don't get me and Craig confused. I don't have a stash or hair or anything on my head. So Craig's the guy with the hair on top of the head.
Yeah, I got the hair on top. I can never go bald, which is good. I'm gonna try to make that happen forever.
Then we'd have to rename every podcast, every community, everything. We'd be like the Bald Brothers or something like that.
The bald bros, the bearded bald bros.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. Today we've got the episode for you here, and we are going to get into 8 things that we look for when we buy our co-living homes. Mind you, we are in Colorado and we are in Washington. You might be in different areas. I think this applies to probably most places. I think this is pretty market agnostic, but know that what works here may be a little different where you are. For example, if you're in a city like a Boston, is like the first one that comes to mind. Public transportation and parking probably doesn't matter as much because most people don't have cars, right? So if you're in a city that doesn't have cars, parking might not be a situation for you. Both in Colorado and Washington, most people do have cars to get around. So that is something that we look for.
I do think, though, that all 8 of these categories, you guys can at least pose questions in your head. You're like, okay, what do I need to think about in my market about parking? What do I need to think in my market about this other category we're going to talk about? So these are all questions that you guys should ask. The answers to them may just be a little bit different if you're in a different area than we're in.
Yes, 100%. And there might be more too, right? Like these are our 8. And there might be little nuances in your market that you know of. And if you know of them, let us know. Shoot us a DM on Instagram, post in the Facebook group, whatever it might be. Because again, we learn just as much, if not more, from you guys than you would actually learn from us. Okay, we ready to get into number 1?
Yeah. What is the most important thing you look for, Craig? And by the way, Craig does most of our acquisitions, so he'll be answering a lot of this. I'm sure I'll have some stories to throw in, which will be fun. But Craig, what's the most important
Fun.
when you're looking for a deal?
So yeah, number one thing, and it's hard to say what the number one thing is, but a very important thing is we do like to try to be pretty particular about what neighborhoods we select.
Hmm.
And so Miller has this really cool tool that he has based on all the rooms that we have across our markets that basically is a heat map as to where are the most inquiries coming in from, where do we have the most occupancy versus the most vacancy. And so that gives us a pretty indicator as to where we need to add more rooms and what neighborhoods are good and what aren't good. And so with that, we usually go there first to try to take a look at, okay, like where are we needing more rooms? And that's kind of where we'll start. If you don't have that particular data, again, this is kind of some of the advantages of scale. And if you're in Colorado and you're in our markets, just let us know. I'm sure we'd be happy to share that with you. But if you're not, we usually tend to go to areas that are class B or class C neighborhoods and that are within a decent proximity to employers. And what we'll call decent is probably within a 10-minute ride to some sort of major employer, shopping center, some place that has a lot of jobs. You can think of hospital, airport, big hotels, resort, schools, that kind of thing.
So
Yeah.
with co-living, let's think about Denver specifically. What are the exact employer? Well, actually, maybe let me speak to this just because I'm on the operations side and I see the applications. So some of the like common like employers that we'll see that are like good things to be around, or I guess, and maybe I take it one step back. All Craig's talking about is demand, right? If you can look at this map and you knew where do people want to live, that's all we're thinking about. Hey, where do people want to live and for this specific product? So which areas of town are people looking to rent rooms? Great. Well, let's think about employers, right? What sort of places are people working at that need to rent a room? But you can start thinking about where are people paid minimum wage, where are they paid less than 60K a year, like that kind of thing. So like we see Amazon workers, right? There's like Amazon work like warehouses around, lots of like strip mall type things. Craig, any other like lower income type areas we might would target?
Yeah, for sure. The big Amazon distribution centers. I like the strip malls. I think obviously hospitals, universities, airport, all big. Like there's Gaylord of the Rockies where we're at, and I've got to imagine there's a lot of employees there, whether it's cleaners, desk people, whatever. And they oftentimes also think about like jobs where they have to be at weird times. Airport, hospitality, and hospitals are big ones for that. They want to live close for sure. If they got to wake up, if they got to get to work for 5 in the morning, they're not going to want to commute an hour to get there. Those are good, and it's important that like when you've got these key heartbeats, we'll call them like these key hubs of employment. Even for example, like there's like the Denver Tech Center where there's not really one particular employer there, but there's just like a hub of offices where there's loads of employers, and we just know a lot of people go there for work. That would be another place that we would like to stay within decent proximity to. And so places like that is where we like to kind of like not stray too far from. And if you're not within 10 or 15 minutes of one of them, like it's okay. We still get houses filled regardless. But like first area of preference for sure is close to one of those things. There's also, so like that's like the neighborhood selection. And then you've got like there's probably loads of neighborhoods within a 15-minute radius of any of
Mhm.
these big employers, right? And you're going to have class A, class B, and class C, maybe even class D properties between each of those. And so for those that don't know, class A neighborhood is like the best kind of neighborhood. Like this would be in Denver, it's like the Cherry Hills neighborhood. That's where like Peyton Manning and John Elway live, like gated community, HOA, manicured lawns, like fresh flowers, like that's A, right? We're staying out of A areas for sure. And it's like an
Why
A
wouldn't we be
plus.
an A? Like, why wouldn't you want to live next to Peyton Manning or whatever? Doesn't that sound cool?
That does sound kind of cool, but have you seen his forehead? I'm just kidding. No, Peyton Manning. I actually peed next to Peyton Manning once. Did you know that?
I did not. Please tell everyone more.
Yeah, that's when I think of Peyton Manning. I just think I went to the same church as Peyton Manning when I lived in Denver. He goes to Brave Church. If you guys ever want to maybe get a spotting of Peyton Manning, but there was one time in the bathroom I like had to pee, and there was Peyton Manning, and I was peeing next to Peyton Manning, and it
Wow.
was probably the most nervous pee I ever took. Actually,
You didn't
now
have
that
a shy issue. It worked just fine.
no, I had to go pretty bad, so it worked. It worked. It came out. but I was nervous. Like for some weird reason, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's Peyton Manning." But I was trying to play it cool. Whatever. Like it's just Peyton Manning. Like Tom Brady's got more rings and more accolades and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay. As a former Tennessee alum, I take offense to that. Yeah, like everything on campus is named after the Mannings, like different roads, like there's Peyton Manning Pass, and like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's like legend around there. So I can't believe that I'm partnered with a guy who has been next to Peyton Manning at a urinal. That's like kind of a big win for
it's
me.
true. Yeah, maybe next time we can hold hands while we pee. That would be the next
Peyton's
level.
in the middle. You and I are holding hands around him.
Yeah, that'll have to be a, what do we call that? Linda or something? Isn't that what he always yells?
I don't know. I
Or
mean,
Omaha. All
okay, there
right,
we go. There we
Omaha.
go.
Set. Okay, Class A neighborhoods. Somehow we got off to peeing with Peyton Manning. All right, Class A neighborhoods. So yeah, so the reason why we don't love Class A neighborhoods and potentially peeing next to Peyton Manning is though they're usually picky, right? They're usually going to care if people are parked on the street. They're not going to want 8 to 10 people living in a house. You got to remember that these are typically lower on the socioeconomic type scale people. So like not that they're bad people, but they just tend to maybe be a little bit less clean. They tend to be outside smoking cigarette butts and they throw their cigarette on the ground or something, even though it's not in our rule book that they can't do that, but they still might. But it's just kind of like the aura they bring to the neighborhood is like doesn't fit in, and then you're going to start getting complaints, and then you're going to have a hard time managing. We have had this issue moving into Class A neighborhoods. Now, the one we described with Peyton Manning and John Elway and all those guys, like that's like A plus, right? There's other types of Class A neighborhoods that are like you don't really want to mess with, like even specifically ones with HOAs. And you kind of just look around. If it seems like there's no cars around, everyone's parked in their garage, everyone's got like BMWs and whatever like nice cars, just stay away from that area.
Yeah. How would you describe B and C?
B, yeah. So B is probably my favorite place to be. So a B area is going to be like, hey, the yards look good. You're not going to see a bunch of beat up jalopy cars in the driveway next door. Maybe there's some houses have like wooden or white fences, but none of the chain link stuff. The yards are relatively maintained. There are people parked on the street. Most suburbs are probably this. No HOA. In Denver, like a lot of these houses are built in the 60s and 70s. They kind of all they don't look the same, but they look similar. And those are probably my favorite because the neighbors are neighborly, they care, they like want to make sure things are good, but like they also don't care that much and that like they're used to people parking on the street, they park on the street. That's a cool thing. And so as long as just the yard is being maintained and things are being cool, no one's going to care. And oftentimes like it's almost good when the neighbors are making sure that the lawn is staying in touch because for some reason, if we ever skip a beat, which Miller would never skip a beat on getting a lawn mode, at least we know we're on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the way that I describe B is it's like a family neighborhood. Almost every house that we have in Colorado Springs is actually in one particular neighborhood. And how, like, when people would ask me, oh, like, when someone wants to move in, oh, what's the neighborhood like? It's, oh, it's super great. It's super safe. It's like a family area. You'll see people with their kids. There's lots of sidewalks. You can walk around the neighborhood. It's just like the average, maybe like pseudo rich kind of thing. Yeah, there's people with like their decked out Jeeps and like their decked out pickup trucks and all that. But it's okay. That's like definitely financed. They don't own this like $100,000 truck straight out. But you walk around and it's just like that, like normal American family kind of feel, I feel.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
And that, we do love those areas. The B is probably best, but like A comes at a premium, B comes at a slightly less premium. C, we still would be okay buying in C. This is a little bit more grungy, right? So still safe in that you're not going to get robbed, or you're not likely at least not going to get robbed or killed or whatever, right? There's not gang violence happening, but you might just see a lot more of the chain link fence. You might see a little bit more yards not getting taken care of. Maybe there's some junk out in the yard. The cars maybe a little bit more beat up, that kind of thing. And those are fine areas too. And typically they come at a little bit more of a discount. And so the numbers tend to work probably the best on paper in those C areas. But you just gotta be a little bit more cautious. And for sure, nobody cares in the C area about like where you're parking and all that kind of stuff, as long as you're not parking in front of somebody else's house. Personally, we like to stay in the B or C areas in terms of neighborhood selection. And the way that we usually determine, let's say we've never stepped foot in this area before, the way that we almost always determine the B or C class is I'll usually just take that little yellow guy on Google Maps. I'll drop him in at the address and I'll just take a little walk in the park, if you will, via Google. And based on what I see, I can usually determine whether it's a class B or class C neighborhood. One thing you just got to be noted when you do that is just make sure that you're looking at the date of those. Usually things don't change too much. Usually they're like within a few years, But for some reason, if it is a lot older of a picture, try to get one that's within 5 years old so you got a better feel for the neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah, and so if you're on Google Maps, it's like in the bottom right or bottom left, it'll be like Google 2025 or something like that. But it can totally change if you step onto that side street, right? Because like maybe the Google van didn't go down that road with the cul-de-sac in the last 10 years. And like you step over there, the pictures look yellow. That's kind of what Craig's talking about. It's like,
Mhm.
what does it look like today then? Maybe you step back on the main street and like zoom in and peek over there if that's the case.
Exactly. So that's kind of how we select our neighborhoods, right? So we're in the B or C class neighborhoods. So then once we've got our neighborhoods selected, now we try to start figuring out, okay, what kind of property do we want? So this is the second question: is a property? What are the property characteristics of a house that we look for? And so my favorite would be like 6 bed, 4 bath. Let's call it like 3,000 square feet or more. And so the reason why I like this, and it all depends on the strategy that you're doing, right? So we're going to assume that we're going to put as minimum rehab as possible in, just for the sake of this conversation, for the sake of what most of our listeners like to do. Like most people that we know aren't doing massive rehabs, but mainly just like increasing it so it works a little bit better for co-living. So 6 bed, 4 bath, 3,000 square feet. This typically makes it so that we can easily add a couple bedrooms. So let's call it like we can easily add usually 4 bedrooms here. Usually it's like turning a dining room into a room, maybe making the basement into an extra 2 rooms. And there's usually like another room that we can make somewhere with 3,000 square feet. And at that point, it's a 10 bed, 4 bath. We don't need to add a bathroom. We don't need to do any of the main systems in the house. We're really just adding walls. And that's definitely the easiest thing for us to do. Typically with that, depending on like the egress window situation, all that's usually the biggest blocker in terms of, or the biggest like expense is going to be the egress windows. And so what we've kind of found too is that people don't really care where their common space is in the house. It could be down, like I feel like the house is so big when you're looking at the floor plan, you're like, oh, they have to walk all the way downstairs to watch TV. But like that's pretty normal for someone to walk downstairs to watch TV. And so what I'm looking at now is like rather than turning like the downstairs rec room into the bedrooms, actually just leaving that as like the downstairs hangout area, and the upstairs living room turns into the bedroom. And the reason for that is because there's no like the egress windows are, you don't need egress windows in the upstairs. They're always full windows. And so that saves us a huge amount on the cost. Gives someone like actually probably a nicer room to actually live in. And then the downstairs is just like more of a hangout spot, which I think we can create more of a vibe down there without like the windows. That's another thing that we look for is that. So yeah, 6 bed, 4 bath. We want to be able to add 4 bedrooms. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and even in that same vein, I think that you guys probably have a lot of assumptions out there that you just don't know until you test things. But even like when Craig and I were talking recently about an acquisition, he's like, okay, here's this bathroom on this level. That means that these 2 beds would share that bath, and then there's a bath over here on the lower level. There's 5 beds that would share that bath. Is that an issue? And this is something we were talking about. And in my experience, just like the common space, like it doesn't really matter where it's at as long as it's underneath the roof. Kind of the same idea with the bathrooms too. Yeah, ideally, let's say there's 9 beds and there's a shared bath on every floor. Great, 3 beds to each bath. In reality, though, maybe there's shared bath up top, 2 people are sharing that one, shared bath underneath, 4 people share that one. It ends up averaging out. Like Craig said, people take their stuff to the other bathroom. It's not that big a deal for them to walk downstairs. It definitely doesn't affect your sellability of the room or anything like that. Like when they move in, it's just a house. They'll walk downstairs. No big deal.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, so that's what we look for. So again, we want to be able to make at least a 10 bed, 4 bath. I think that's kind of the sweet spot. Like if we're buying traditionally these days, we're going to buy 10 bed, 4 bath. Like that's it. And we got to figure out a way to make it that way. It's not usually worth it for us to get anything less than a 10 bed, 4 bath, unless the price is a lot lower. But in these cases, it's really tough to make it that way, just in our market. And we do like to leave a common area open. Community is really big for us, and we like to get people to get along. And like we believe we're trying to serve a bigger mission here with community and getting people to like love on each other. And so we're a little different than the pad split model, but we do like to have that open spot. Whereas like other people, if you're listening to this, you're like, oh wow, 3,000 square feet. You should be looking at least 12 beds in there. Yeah, we leave probably 2 beds on the table to create that community environment, and we think that's worth it.
Yeah, yeah, there's pros and cons to the whole thing, but one way that this kind of proves out, I guess I'm not sure what the number is exactly right now, but if you were to look at pad split data, and you guys can go do this, if you log in and make a landlord account or whatever they call it, like a host account, then you can look at their data, which is super cool. Even like earlier when we were talking about looking at neighborhoods, you can go in there and they kind of have a heat map you can look at. But anyway, last time I checked, they were like 60% occupied or so in Denver, like pad split portfolio wide, and it's a newer market they've launched and things like that. But definitely one of the reasons that we're able to get 90% occupied pretty dang quickly, if you guys listen to the last episode, is because a lot of these things that we provide, like having common space. So yes, there's 2 less beds on the table, but we're 90% occupied instead of 60% occupied. Our people stay longer. Like there's math to play into this, lower vacancy and all that.
Yeah. And
Anyway,
just to like really just potentially beat this dead horse, right? But if you think about the demographic of who we're serving, these people are getting the bottom of the barrel of probably almost everything in life, right? They probably buy the cheapest possible car. They buy the cheapest possible groceries. They get the cheapest possible food at the restaurants. Everything is like cheap, 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 cheap. It's like the bird in Family Guy, the Jew bird, or whatever. Cheap, cheap, cheap. Anyway, sorry, I'm half Jewish, so I get to make those jokes. But when we provide this kind of environment for them, it's like it feels a little bit more of like a luxury type thing where it's like, hey, we've got a space for you, we've got community for you, we've got a place for you to hang out. Oh wow, you like really care about us. And so that, I think that actually goes a long way, and it's like a little bit of a breath of fresh air with this demographic. And yeah, go ahead, Miller.
I was going to break into some of the more property characteristics, but are there any more demographic things you wanted to talk about?
No.
Okay. So as an agent on these properties, I mean, there's a lot of things in the property characteristics beyond, beds, bath, and square footage. So are there any like hot button things that you are thinking about? Like I'm not an agent, but I know we've had sewer problems and things like that. Are there any of those specific details that you would check into in a property also?
Yeah, but you do that kind of during the inspection. So basically, before we even put in the offer, right, and still kind of analyzing the house before putting in the offer, it's beds, it's baths, it's square footage, it's the layout, where can we add the bedrooms, what's the feng shui of the house looking like, and all that kind of stuff. In terms of like inspection items, like 100%, we got to get the sewer scoped. And I tell you, man, like I sewer scope every house, and I still somehow get plagued with these sewer issues that come up. So I can't
Can you
explain
give
it.
like the quick rundown just because maybe it's different in different parts of the country, but there's some like rules of thumb about if it's in this year built, it might have this sort of piping and things like that?
Yeah, so if it's older, we'll say like 1960, we'll call it 1970 or earlier. It's likely that you're going to have either Orangeburg or cast iron piping if it hasn't been replaced. And those pipes actually can last a while, and they aren't horrible. But the problem with them is that the roots tend to grow in them. They may tend to rust out if not properly cared for. And so mainly it's like you just got to make sure that you're actually taking care of your sewer pipes by just getting them cleaned out probably twice a year, and that will actually go a long way. And so I've had so many sewer issues this year, man, that I've now just implemented a system to where pretty much twice a year we're getting the sewers cleaned, we're getting gutters, we were doing the property maintenance stuff the right way. We're paying the extra now to not pay later. And so yeah, you'll want to look at all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about that a little bit later during the inspection, and probably even in another episode actually about like the diligence side of things.
Mm. Awesome. Yeah. You guys comment if you're interested more in the actual, once you go under contract, what do you do? Because I'm sure we could do a whole deep dive.
Yeah, we'll do a whole deep dive with that for sure. I think that'll actually be really valuable. So yeah, so that's like the property characteristics. Then we're also the next thing we want to talk about, number 3. So we've got neighborhood selection, property characteristics. This is like maybe 2.1, but we'll call it 3. And this is parking. So this is where it differs based on where you're at, right? Parking, almost everyone where we are has a car. And so we really like houses with corner lots, houses that are across the street from corner lots, like around a park or whatever, basically somewhere where there's just like ample parking. That just helps us avoid a lot of issues that are pretty much like it's an unsolvable issue after you've purchased a house when there's not enough parking and if the neighbors are complaining. And so one way that we're okay with maybe having a little bit less parking is if the area is within proximity to a bus stop. There are a decent amount of people who actually don't have cars, can't afford them, don't need them, or whatever, and they take the bus to work. And so, in that type of situation, we'll try to stay within a 10-minute walk of a bus stop. And so I feel like that's something kind of new that we're testing. Usually we're just all in on parking, but we're testing what does that look like. And we know a lot of other operators that just make sure that they're within a bus stop, and it seems to work okay.
Yeah. Craig, what was our motivation for looking into like some shortcuts or like some other ways that we can buy properties that don't have great parking? Like you mentioned, being close to the bus stop. Why would we even be interested in doing that?
Yeah. So Miller and I were talking, and we were like, okay, like we can buy when you're buying one or two houses a year, like you can wait to buy the perfect house with the perfect parking and the perfect everything, right? But when we're trying to achieve scale, there's just something that has to give a little bit. And one of the things we decided was like, okay, parking is eliminates probably a lot of the houses, and we need to figure out a way to increase the amount of potential properties that would work for us, as long as the parking is like acceptable. Like we still wouldn't take like houses that are like 4 feet apart from each other, like in a cul-de-sac where the parking is like totally unknown. But when we're like, you know what, like maybe this house is a little bit landlocked, there's a decent amount of space, there's clearly 5 or 6 spots that could be for this house, and there's a bus stop 6 minutes away, 6 minute walk away. Okay, that one we'd probably still check out and try to buy.
Yeah, yeah, and I would say, like you guys heard Craig say, we're still buying properties that have acceptable parking for their location. So we definitely don't want co-living to get a bad reputation, and I think it is a little bit right now. And I don't know, like that's hard to reverse a little bit, but a lot of it is due to parking. People moving into the B class type neighborhoods. Some co-living operator buys there. Now there's 10 cars parked at a house that really only fits 4. Great. B people might complain about that, might start an issue in your city, might bring it up to city council. Now there's new rules, right? We really do want to keep co-living, have a great reputation, and keep it that way. And this is part of it. We might sacrifice on parking, but not really, because we're doing it with these other like compensating factors in mind. The default still is get fantastic parking. Now we're still getting fantastic parking. It's just half the people may not have cars.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
So don't do it at the cost of this industry that we all know and love.
Yeah, yeah, yes, exactly. Especially as it's in its infancy. So the fourth thing that we like to look for is I this is a personal preference. Some people might argue with me on this one. Is I like to have the master suite. I think people really prefer that, and we charge a little bit of a premium for it. And I think it's worth it. The only time I would say not having a master suite is worthwhile is if you could get a 9 bed, 3 bath, and that third bathroom that would typically be like a master suite is actually accessible to the other 2 rooms, to where you could add 2 more. You could your bed to bathroom ratio doesn't get totally screwed up. But for us, we like the 10 bed, 4 bath, right? Because typically it's 3 people to a bathroom is what we try to stay to, and that kind of gets into our next point. So that would be 3 times 3 is 9, and then that last bathroom is usually just a private bathroom, and so that would be the one, and we can
Yeah.
charge a little bit for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I even think it brings in a little bit more of a diverse culture too. Because like Craig said, cheap, 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 and I'm like totally white, so I'm just going to leave it there. Like, there's no joke behind that, but yeah, just cheap, 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 cheap. Like that's how most people are. And so whenever you introduce this room that is a little bit more expensive, great. Now you are bringing some diversity into the house. There's somebody who has some more higher income. Like that's not a bad thing. That really just introduces different perspectives. People working in different industries. When we get people together for these community events, it's not like we want everyone to be exactly the same. We want people to be able to get along, but getting some different personalities together at least spices the house up in a good way. Like diversity is good in that way.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. Cool. So yeah, so master suite, I like to see one like yellow flag on the master suite is sometimes they're just massive. And that's a yellow flag because what's going to happen is you're eating up like 1,000 square feet of your house with one
Mm.
bedroom. Like that's just like it's not efficient. So I really like to see the master suite being like a normal size room with a like somewhat small bathroom attached to it, because you're not going to get that much more for the size of the room. The only time where I like to see the big room is potentially is you can maybe split that up into 2 rooms, and that is sometimes where we could add an extra bedroom.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree on that. Rents do increase a little bit with square footage, like room square footage, but really just the differentiator between being a shared room and a private, like a shared bathroom and a private bathroom. That's where you get like that big jump in rent. Beyond that, like adding extra square footage, sure, you get a little bit, but it's really not like it wouldn't be worth building on extra square footage to an existing master bedroom, for example. Same idea. It's not worth having a super duper ginormous one if it could be one with a private bath and one with a shared. For example, we have one room in Colorado Springs that honestly, it's 400 square feet. This master bedroom is. It was a
Jeez.
20 by 20 garage, and when we built this, it turned it into a 10 bed, and we didn't want to build more than 10, so we didn't split it up. But guess what? It rents for the exact same amount as the other master in that house that's normal size. Like they're both like 920 or 950 or whatever. So the extra square footage is wasted. It's just that's the structure that we were building within, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and thanks for sharing that real anecdote there. Because yeah, I mean, that stuff is real. It's like bathroom or not bathroom. So yeah, be careful there. So just to recap real quick to where we're at right now is so we're 4 down, about halfway through. Neighborhood selection, property character. So neighborhood selection, we like the B or C. Property characteristics: 6 bed, 4 bath, 3,000 square feet with the ability to get to 10. Parking in proximity to a bus stop needs to be good, and master suite is a plus. The other thing we want to talk about, we've already touched on, so we'll hit on it quick. The fifth thing would be just the bathrooms. We get this question a lot as to like what is the ideal bed to bathroom ratio. We like to keep it to 3 to 1, There might be a very extenuating circumstance where we might not do that, but I would say like as a 99% general rule of thumb, 3 to 1. So three people to one bathroom, and a master, like the master, it counts as one. Like we can't assume that people are going to go use someone else's bathroom.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think the most stressed that we have one bathroom that has 4 people to it. And by the way, remember, we're not worried about location. So like the 10 bed, 4 bath scenario that Craig was just talking about, one of those is a master suite. All right. So that's one bed, 1 bath. So now we're down to 9 people sharing 3 baths. Those 3 baths could be anywhere in the house and we're good with it. The only other thing we've seen success with, so when we have 4 people, a little bit less success, we are totally good up to 3.5 people to a bath. So like in my portfolio, we have a lot of 8 bed, 3 baths. So one of those is a master suite. Great. That takes one out. Now we're left with 7-2, right? So again, anywhere in the house, but those 7 people split those 2 baths. We have not seen any increased issues there. It's really just when we get to 4 people that we start to see it.
Mm. Wouldn't a 7-2 be 4 people in one of them?
Yeah, so it would be 4 people to one of them. So where it would not work is the one that I'm thinking about where we have issues. It's a 5-2. So there's one master and they have their own bath, and then it's 4 people to a single bath.
I see.
When we
So
have
if there's
7 people
two,
sharing, yeah,
I see. Then it's like, yeah, people just,
yeah, like
90% of the time, people are going in there to pee for 30 seconds. So like
yeah,
it, people can go into other people's bathrooms. It's not a huge deal.
yeah, exactly. Really, just having a second shared bath relieves so much pressure on the house because if one person is in one, great, odds are the other one is empty. So really, I think you're a lot more constrained when you have one bath. That's where you would never want 4 people to it. You never want 5 people to it. But when you have two open, it really eases things. So 7 people to two is way different than 4 people to one, basically.
Right. Cool. Okay. So that's the bathroom talk. I could have totally talked about peeing next to Peyton Manning in the bathroom talk.
Oh man! All right, let's recut
Yeah.
this episode.
Yeah. Redo it. No. Okay. So number 5, maybe we're on, is the layout. No, it's number 6. Layout. This is actually very, very important. The layout. Ideally, the house that we're looking at has got floor plans. If it doesn't have floor plans and I'm interested, I usually have somebody go do a video tour and also use the Kubicasa app, which I believe is free.
Mhm.
And within 24 hours, you can get decent, good enough floor plans. We'll call them good enough floor plans. And that is a game changer in terms of like what, how, and when and where we're going to put in the rooms. It's actually very important, especially if you're adding bedrooms, to be able to chart this out for your contractors so they can see exactly like where you want to put the rooms.
Yeah,
especially if you're doing this remotely. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize how important this piece is. If you guys listen to our episode with Gina Kingdeski and her husband, they were saying that they were getting 2,200 square foot houses in Phoenix, I think or thereabouts. They were getting 2,200 square feet houses and putting 10 beds in it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, our houses are like 3,200 square foot by the time we're able to get 10 beds in them. And it's all because they're being so efficient with their floor plan. In their case, I think they're taking them down to studs and doing like a pretty deep remodel to like totally rework the floor plan. But it just goes to show you could have a 3,000 square foot house or a 2,000 square foot house, and they could both fit a ton of rooms if they're correct. Like most 2,000 square foot houses, probably not. But if you did it right, maybe you could. And now you're getting a way cheaper house, getting way more rooms in it. Like your cash on cash gets juiced a lot just based on the floor plan. Like it is the primary driver for co-living specifically and how much revenue you can get.
Yep, 100%. So yeah, so as you're going through, floor plans are obviously that ideal situation. If not, and you think you want to even see whether it's worth it to get out there and get a floor plan or go walk it yourself or whatever, just look at the pictures, right? So oftentimes you'll see what I look for is like a dining room off the kitchen. That's not quite the kitchen. So easily can like throw up a door and a wall there and add a bedroom very easily. Done that a lot of times. Large rec rooms upstairs or downstairs, living rooms upstairs or downstairs. Those are probably the most common places where we know we can add bedrooms. And with us, we like to try to figure out, okay, like where is this common area going to be and where's like the fun and the community gathering going to happen. And so again, as we're looking for, we like to like probably figure out where that's going to be first, and then we can say, okay, everything else should be a bedroom. And that's pretty much what we do on the floor plan. It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. Yeah, just a couple other things I wanted to throw at you guys. So again, Craig was saying we're able to get all this info and we can bring it to you guys at scale. We did a survey on our residents recently because we were looking at some particular property, and you'll find this scenario sometimes. There's like this nook. There's a nook in the basement. It's like, okay, we could build a bedroom over here, but we're still left with this 9 foot wide by 8-foot wide spot or whatever. It's not quite big enough to be a bedroom, and we already have a living room. What are we going to do with it? We started asking some residents, and 60% of people said they would rather a fitness space, 30% a bigger couch, and then 10% a ping pong table. And then one guy said a dartboard, but we're probably not going to do that one. But anyway, so just so you know, so you guys know, that's what residents might be looking for. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean just because most people said a fitness center, there's a return on investment there. And one of my favorite quotes, or maybe not one of my favorites, but one I just thought of, I think it was Henry Ford. He said something like, if you would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said they wanted a faster horse. So just because people said they want a fitness area doesn't mean it's the best. But those are some options out there. If you're looking to increase your demand for your rooms, hey, they're not renting up fast enough. I have this extra space in the house, in the layout. Great. Fitness space, bigger couch. Those are some things people are looking for.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, Miller. It's my first time actually hearing that. You're revealing
Yeah.
it to me here. And on a 9x8 space, obviously, you're not going to be able to have a full gym or even probably even like a weight set, but like you could probably throw in a treadmill and like a Bowflex type machine or something like that. And you can get those for fairly cheap, usually off like Facebook Marketplace used. And that could be something. The only other thing you want to be mindful of though is like those machines do make noise.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's right off of a bedroom and like someone's on the treadmill at 6 o'clock in the morning, like that might not be very, it might cause more problems than it might
Totally.
solve.
Yeah. That's why you don't just consider what they want. We do have to think about
Yep.
it from the operations and return on investment and all that. Just one more quick tip before we roll to number 7. Some counties and some cities support this, not all of them. But if you're looking at a property on Zillow and they don't have a floor plan uploaded, which they do a lot of the time, but if they don't, and you haven't sent your agent out yet, no one's been out there with a camera to shoot a QB Casa floor plan or anything, there are some counties that will allow you to look at floor plans online. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One in Colorado Springs, if you pay $20 a month, I think, or $35 a month, there's a subscription to the permitting department. And if you have that subscription, you can go look at all the plans for each property as long as it was like build year 2000 or later, then they were in there. That was always super helpful. So I wouldn't have to send my agent out there to spend time shooting a QB Casa, because like a lot of the time you'll look at the photos if there's no layout and you're like, oh man, I think I could get a room there. This was shot with a wide angle lens or like whatever. Like it's really hard to tell from the photos, but maybe. Great. Let me go send my agent out there and spend 20 bucks in gas just to measure this one thing. So sometimes you can find that on those sites. And then also with Zillow, you know how they do those like 3D tours? Sometimes some of those they shot with LiDAR, which is like super cool. And you can click a button, like a measurement button, when you're like walking around the house in that virtual tour. And it'll show you the measurements of all the walls. And you can click that wall and click this wall, and it'll tell you the distance. So I'm seeing more and more of those, which could also be a good way to figure out the layout without sending someone out to the house first.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Yep. All things that we'll look for before we send somebody out every time.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So we are coming into the final stretch here, Miller. Number 7 is HOA.
Oh my.
That is like a bad, yeah, that should be like OMG. That is a bad word in our world here. We just don't do HOAs. I think I'm at the point now where I don't even think, even if it's like a $10 a month HOA, just if there's a governing board, it may cause issues in the future and it could totally derail your investment strategy. So you do not want an HOA on your butt.
Yeah. Even if it's $10, that might sound like low risk. It is just, it's such high consequence though. Whenever you deployed $200,000, $150,000, whatever, to buy this $500,000 house, and now someone tells you what to do with it. Because I think that the thing is like with co-living, you might be the first person in the neighborhood trying to do this, at least with short term. Okay, maybe you could buy an HOA because you've read the docs and like they've already been through this. Some people already tried to do HOA or tried to do short term in the neighborhood, and like they already built their rules to stop that or manage it or whatever. You're probably the first person in the neighborhood doing co-living. So you're the guinea pig. You're the person that they might create these rules for, and you just don't know if they're going to be supportive or not. So it's just like high, like I said, high consequence, I think.
Yep. And it's not the fee that matters, right? It's just the fact that there is a governing body. Yeah. So stay out of HOAs. That's my biggest thing. Yep.
Yeah. And I can actually give one quick example too. I think I wrote about this one in the book, but I had a buddy, whenever I was living in one of my house hacks, he actually bought a co-living property next door and we started being friends and all that. But he was buying another co-living property and he ended up backing out because he went under contract. For whatever reason, he didn't know it was in an HOA at first, but he got the HOA docs when he was under contract. And it was like a $5 a month, $10 a month kind of thing, like Craig's talking about. There's a lot of people out there who say if the fee is $20 a month or less, then like you're good to go. So this was underneath that threshold, But still, some things that came back in the regs that would have like totally prevented co-living. Any remodel that you did to the interior or exterior of your house had to be approved by the HOA, which is kind of crazy. It's like interior too. So that was one thing. Also, you had, so like we would be building walls, for example. Like you'd have to get all that approved, and they'd be like, "Oh, why are you adding a seventh bedroom? How many kids do you have?" "Oh, I'm going to rent it out." All right, that's hot. That's top of the meeting minutes for next meeting, probably for them to talk about. And then the other thing that there was, oh, you had to get every single lease approved also. So imagine you come to them and you're showing them a second lease. Like you just got one lease signed. Here's the second one. They're like, okay, weird. I'll sign that one. Third one, fourth one, fifth one. They're like, what the heck is going on? So like all of these rules were in place that would alert them to what you're doing in this case, which could have ended badly.
Yeah, I mean, great. That's one of many instances of things that could go wrong, and those rules can change very quickly with HOAs. So, yeah, so just stay out of HOAs. That's kind of like the golden rule there. And then the eighth and final item. So, I guess let's just recap it real quick. So, again, we've done this a couple times, but I know you guys are listening and probably while working out or on the car. So, neighborhood, we like B and C class. Property characteristics: 10 bed, 4 bath, 3,000 square feet. Parking, either an ample amount of parking or near a bus stop. We like to see a smaller master suite, but a master suite nonetheless. Making sure it's at least a 3-to-1 bathroom person, like bed to bathroom ratio. 4 is okay as long as there's 2 shared bathrooms total. The layout is extremely important to know and understand to see where we can add the bedrooms, where we can have the house flow. No HOAs in the eighth and final one are just kind of like a catch all, like other red flags that we look for. I would say, like, probably the biggest, for sure, the biggest red flag is going to be HOA. Other red flags that we might look into are like maybe if you're buying another co living house and they're selling it, you may want to understand like why, like what's wrong, why is that not working, why do you not like it, and depending on the reasoning, you need to do it for. If they're not able to operate it, you got to figure out: is it a, do they need the cash for something? Is it a personal issue or it had nothing to do with the house? Is it an operational issue? Because usually these things cash flow so well that like people usually want to hold on to them. So then there might be like a headache element, and is that something that you can solve? And is that, would that be your problem? And so those are always like things that, like, if someone else doesn't like it, you always want to like make sure of that kind of stuff. Other red flags are like cul-de-sacs. I don't like cul-de-sacs. There's a lot of houses in a cul-de-sac, and there's a lot of, not a lot of parking typically. There's no undedicated parking. Like it just feels like, it just feels weird. You're pretty much always blocking somebody, so kind of stay away from that. And then also, like, we usually like the houses to, another red flag would be like, we usually like the houses to look decent. Like they don't need to look beautiful, but they need to look like presentable. And so if the house is like totally in shambles, like unless you're doing like a burr or anything like that with it, burr indico living, I would recommend staying away from that. What other red flags do you have?
Yeah, the only other thing is in that vein, like how does the house look? Really, the inside of the house, so and the outside, but like even the inside, like how presentable is this house? When you're walking through, you really need to be thinking about what your listing photos are going to look like, right? So with traditional rentals, or if you were selling your house, whoever's buying it or like the traditional renter would probably walk through there and check it all out for themselves, and they get to like double check all of that. But with co-living, there are a lot of people who sign leases without doing tours. Like in Colorado Springs, it was 70%, and Denver is probably 30% or so. But there's still a lot of people signing leases without doing tours. So you really have to hook them with photos. Like that is their main portal into the property. So, like an example of this, and this sounds like so silly, but like I've actually seen a difference in the leads on these two properties. We have two houses in the same neighborhood, same exact floor plan. The only difference, one of them has a third car garage. Otherwise, yeah, the other one has a 2 car. And the only other difference is one house was painted more like new. It was like painted like more white type of like flip looking paint with white updated trim, white like 6 panel doors or whatever. And then the other house is like still has the older like eggshell kind of paint, like brown wood trim, brown wood like hollow doors. Identical otherwise, besides like paint and trim essentially. And there is that the White House fills up first every single time. Like every single time that one fills up first. So the photos, the presentability of the inside could be a red flag. You would just want to plan to make upgrades. Obviously, it's not like it's a deal killer, but consider you might want to upgrade the inside paint, trim, that kind of stuff.
Yep, totally agree. The cosmetics and like the aesthetic stuff, they're usually pretty cheap to do, and it can go a long way. All right. Those are the 8 things, man. I think that was a pretty comprehensive list. Just to go through it again one more time. Neighborhood selection, property characteristics, parking, the master suite, bathrooms, 3-to-1 bathroom ratio, the layout, HOAs, and then the additional red flags. Those are the top 8 things that we look for when we're buying homes. If there's anything that we missed, guys, or something that you look for, let us know. We could totally be off. We could be leaving something out, and heck, you might even add another step to our analysis. And so, yeah, let us know via Instagram, on the Facebook group, whatever that is. Miller, anything else you got before we want to head out for this week?
Maybe just a quick plug for Craig. If you guys are looking to buy a property in Denver, Craig can help you with that.
Yeah, if you guys are looking to buy anything, obviously we're here to help. So yeah, you can reach out to me. Just come out over Instagram, or we got the FiTeam.com page as well. So you just go to the FiTeam.com/work with us, and we'll get you into something nice.
Cool. Otherwise, yeah, I think this is great. Craig and I combined probably own 30 to 40 houses or something. So like we both looked at a lot of them personally, plus Craig's helped buy loads and loads more than that. So
Yeah,
anyway,
probably
I think this
probably
is,
hundreds.
yeah, I think it's super comprehensive.
Cool.
Cool.
Miller, thanks for letting me talk the whole time.
Yes, sir.
And
Nice to take a little break sometimes.
yeah, I know you were talking to your robots over there, but luckily you can talk to them. Are you gonna be like a Neuralink guy? Are you gonna have the robot in your head?
Oh, it's a good question. I like technology. I never said I super trust it. I don't want it in my brain at this point, I
Okay.
would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Cool.
If anything, I kind of feel like AI has helped me disconnect, to be honest. Like AI can go do things for me in the internet that I don't have to do anymore. So I can sit on the couch and really enjoy my human time with my wife. So it's had the opposite effect, I think.
Okay. Good. He is human, guys. Um,
Yes, I'm
just
social.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Hey, good to chat with you here this week. I hope you all found a lot of joy, and maybe joy is not the right word, but at least a lot of value in this episode. And if you liked it, please give us a rating and review on Spotify, podcast, iTunes. Let us know in our DMs that you liked the episode. Believe it or not, it actually makes our hearts sing to know we're not just talking to empty spaces.
Yeah.
And we super appreciate that. With that being said, guys, we'll see y'all next week. If you need anything, just let us know. Deuces.
Peace.